stars align. A night like this can never rewind. Can you hear the wolf cry out to the light? A night like this and never shine so bright. So take a couple steps back as you hear me start to hum. Take a couple steps back when I lose all control. Watch me turn into a werewolf, and I will hunt till the break of dawn. Don't you dare to try to stop me. This is the horn of the black swan. take a couple steps back as you hear me start to hum. Take a couple steps back when I lose all control. Watch me turn into a werewolf, and I will hunt till the break of dawn. Don't you dare to try to stop me. This is the horn of the black swan. There is not a day that I don't think about you. It's rare enough we find someone we need around. Here we are, out on this road. I'll take you with me anywhere, yeah. Here's my heart, it's yours and no. I'll take you with me and I swear. My love, I got you, babe. My heart is with you always. My love, I got you, babe. My heart is with you always.
Right, here we go. Good afternoon and welcome, Tigers fans. Thanks for joining us. I hope everybody's safe and well. The plan this afternoon is that we'll be running a virtual question time with myself. I'll be doing the interviewing and I'll be doing the answering, followed by a live draw of the McKenzie Monday shirt off the back and reveal the winning jersey design from the competition that we've been running online. I'd like to thank everybody for the continued support that they've provided the club over the last few weeks. The take-up of shirt off the back tickets and 50-50 draw tickets has been absolutely excellent, far above and beyond the expectations that we'd hoped to reach. So again, thanks for that. Please keep an eye out for the some new competitions that we'll be running online over the next few weeks. I also hope everybody's enjoyed reliving the cup final games that were shown on YouTube over the past weekends. Great to be able to see the semi-final of the cup game against Swindon, followed up by the cup win against Peterborough. Great to be able to relive those emotions. We will be playing some league games over the next few weeks as well, culminating with the final game there against the Raiders, where we were able to lift the league trophy. So, you know, we've got a lot going on in the background. It takes a lot of time and planning. I'm absolutely horrendous on the technical aspects of this, and this is about take 39 of this one video, so please bear with me. We'll get into the questions. So we've got first questions that have been emailed in. The first questions that comes from Jack Lester. Who've been the top three or the hardest opponents to play against this season? For me, if I look at it from a record and stats perspective initially, I think that the two teams with the best record against us were Bracknell. Bracknell, we were 1-3 against them. so they edged that head-to-head, and Basingstoke, we were 2-2 in the league. So if you look at it from a stats perspective, I think that they were the most challenging for us as a club. I think the games against Swindon were probably the hardest. Yes, we've got a great record, but I think every game was very, very close. It was very well matched. Both teams faced off against each other very, very well. They were physical, they were intense, and I think everybody got a lot of enjoyment from playing those games. Each team in the league obviously provides different aspects that you've got to plan for. Bracknell were pretty tough for us. We went down there and we lost on both occasions in their building. I think the first one in overtime. And every time we faced those guys, we found it hard to break them down. Similarly with Basingstoke, good, quick team, well organised. So for me, those three, you might look at them and go, perhaps not the obvious ones, but certainly from a record point of view, I think they're the three that we found the toughest. Josh Williams, next question. Do you think any of the NIHL Division 1 teams, both North and South, could make the step up to the National League? For sure, yeah. If you look at all of us, we were all playing National League Division 1 just a year ago. Teams this season that I've got a lot of admiration for, the Raiders, they stepped up and took on that challenge, and they've adjusted to it very well. I think there's several clubs around the league that probably could do that. You'd probably look and say possibly Streatham. For me, I think if Whitley Bay wanted to and they wanted to provide the support properly for their players, I think they're probably a club that they get the fan base. I'd love to see the likes of Solway given an opportunity to play. I know that the travel is probably always a bit of an issue for a lot of the clubs, but Solway were very competitive with us over the last 2 years in the northern part of the NIHL. So potentially for me, there are a few teams that could probably make that step up. It takes time, and I think it's making sure that you've got the infrastructure around the club to be able to do that, which I'm sure those three definitely have. Next question from Josh. If you could sign one player from a team in the National League last season to fit into the Tigers team, who would it be and why? I thought long and hard about this one, but I think every time that we were sat on the bus or during a game, after the game, looking at results and the results specifically from Swindon, it was always Aaron Nell that popped up with a big goal that got them back into it or won them the game. So I think Aaron had a really strong season on the ice. He scored some clutch goals for Swindon, and for me it was him that was really keeping up the pressure on us and leading his team. So all in all, I think somebody that's got the ability to shoot the puck the way that he has, I think Aaron would fit in very well in our group. Same. Next question from Josh. Do you think the import rule should change for the National League? Simple answer, no. I think the way it was last season fitted very well. I think having the opportunities to get British guys on the ice and play in key situations is vitally important for the development of the league as a whole. I don't think we should restrict imports, one import on the ice at a time. I think if we've got two imports in our roster, they should be able to ice at the same time. It was something that I pushed for at the league meetings last summer, and sadly nobody else backed that decision. My argument being that if you've got two imports on the ice at the same time, you then got the ability to come back with another 5 British guys. So it's all about development. It's all about players learning from new experiences and often having an import alongside you who can carry the load. Doesn't help that development for a British guy in a key situation. So I think 2 imports is sufficient. I think the league was very competitive because of that number, and hopefully that's something that we'll be able to continue with the development of young players. Having 2 imports in our roster last year, albeit that Jason was eventually classed as a Brit, allowed for us to play some exciting young talent. Guys like Finlay Howells, guys like my son Sam benefited from only having 2 imports, and I think if you stack up the league with imports, you're losing those development opportunities for players to get a foothold in the league. Next question comes from an anonymous. How do you think this season's squad managed to win a league that they had no right winning? What was different, special about the team to others in the league? I think a bit of a tough question, really. If you look at a league that we had no right winning, I don't know. I think going into the season, I was pretty confident and really happy with the recruitment that we were able to do. We had a lot of good experience from guys that have won in the past. Would you say we had the best team on the paper? No. Did we have the biggest budget? Definitely not. But we do have a group of players that have won before. I think we were able to add the right pieces in the right places. Adding Brad Day was a big part of that for our team. What was special about this team? I just think it was one of those groups of people that we put together in a room and they instantly hit it off, and they bought in. The work ethic, the character was there. We had nobody that got outside the team plan, the team element that was massively important for us. It made us all laugh, I think, as a team, that when people were talking about us as a 6th, 7th, 8th place team going into this league, I think it made us all have that little bit more desire to do what we did. Long season, but we struggled with injuries, we struggled with suspensions, but no matter what happened, we still had a huge amount of belief, and I think that was probably one of the big things that was the difference. Whether we were down, whether we were short, we still went in with the right mentality and the right commitment, and I'm for sure that we blocked more shots than any other team in the league. I'd be surprised if that stat wasn't correct, because it seemed to me that my team laid it on the line every night that they played, and we're often showing bruises off to one another in the showers. So I think we won it because we deserved to win it. We were the best team for sure. Not the best team on paper perhaps, but we're definitely the best team. And another way of looking at that, I suppose, is that we had really good coaching. But I'll let you be the judge of that. Next questions come from Steve Oliver. At what point last season did you feel something special was on the cards? I think from the off, really. We always try to run a really good pre-season in Telford. We set out a lot of standards from the get-go. That first meeting's really important, and I think instantly then you got the buy-in from the guys of how they react to that first practice, that first week of training. We were able to have a good first week of training and a really strong pre-season game against Swindon, and I knew that at that point, when you see the commitment and the character of the guys that they're willing to put in a pre-season game, you've got a good group. I think once we were able to prove to ourselves that we could win without key guys playing. We had an early season winning streak of 8 to 10 games, and I think that really helped us galvanise as a group. That, like I said, the belief then kind of took over. The confidence was there to see, no matter what the situation, like I've already touched on. And I think key guys really stepped up at key moments. I think Dominic and Scott really kind of got a hold of the team early season, were able to carry us. I think January, February, Sills was absolutely outstanding. You get into the back end, Brandon and Scott again were lethal as a pair, and on top of that, Brad played solid all season. So I think it was really a combination of early season and then having a good start that able to get us in a position of strength from October, and then when we signed Brandon from that position, I think it was a great moment for us as a club to be able to keep pushing at that point. Again from Steve Oliver, who was the biggest joker or prankster in the dressing room in this season? Loudest is definitely probably Joe Aston. Funniest is probably Nick Oliver. Prankster, not really sure. Maybe Dan Mitchell. Probably the best question for the players. I try and let them have their own space in the dressing room. But we've got some really good characters, and I'm constantly shouting from the front of the bus to keep the noise down on the way through a game, things like that. But no, good room. They have a lot of fun. They enjoy the time together, and I think that was one of the key reasons for the success this year. Which team do we relish playing the most? I think for the players and for myself, probably Swindon. We as a club, I think they've got a really strong backroom to their club. They've grown that club very well. So off the ice, I think it's something that we aspire to be as a club that of that mould. On the ice, I think they've got a very talented group. They play hard, and they certainly kept us on our toes. I was really proud of that record that we had against Swindon this season. But equally, those games could have probably gone either way. They were so close, so touch and go. So I think it was one of the things that we always enjoyed was getting ready and playing for playing Swindon, whether it was home and away. And we had the opportunity to play them two pre-season games, and I think 6 total. And to only lose one of those in competitive competition was fantastic. Again, another anonymous question. Are we going to see a testimonial event coming this season to celebrate your previous 10 years with the Tigers, as your 10th season was last season? I'd love one. Being honest, I'd love the opportunity to be able to celebrate my time with the Tigers. I think it would be a real honour. I was lucky enough to have a testimonial in Coventry. I've worked extremely hard and dedicated a lot of time to the club. And when I first came here, it was a club that we were really trying to rebuild. We had a lot of fun in some of those years. It was a struggle. I'm probably the only coach in the world to have a 23-game losing streak and keep their job. But are we going to see a testimonial season? I don't know. It's not for me to say that we're going to do that. It's very personal to me. This is my 11th consecutive year here coaching. Some of that was playing as well. It's my 14th year overall as a Tiger. I played 3 seasons here in the early 90s. I've been general manager for the last 3 seasons, so I've certainly put the time in. So I think it's something for the fans and club management to perhaps get behind, and it's up to those guys to offer me. And if they offer me, for sure, I'd be absolutely honoured to accept. If we leave it there for a few minutes, and we'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll be back with a few more questions following the break. Thank you.
Already brushing off the dust. You hear my voice, you hear that sound. Like thunder gonna shake the ground. You held me down, but I got up. Get ready, cause I've had enough. I see it all, I see it now. I got the eye of the tiger, a fighter, dancing through the fire. Cause I am a champion, and you're gonna hear me roar louder, louder than a lion. Cause I am a champion, and you're gonna hear me roar. Now I'm floating like a butterfly, stinging like a bee, I earned my stripes. I went from 0 to my own hero. You held me down, but I got up. Already brushing off the dust. You hear my voice, you hear that sound. Like thunder gonna shake the ground. You held me down, but I got up. Get ready, cause I've had enough. I see it all, I see it now. I got the eye of the tiger, a fighter, dancing through the fire. Cause I am a champion, and you're gonna hear me roar louder, louder than a lion. Cause I am a champion, and you're gonna hear me roar. You're gonna hear
welcome back to part 2 of Question Time with Tom Watkins. Next set of questions come from the K family, and this is one of my favourite questions we've got in here. Has the ice rink been thawed, and are you keeping goldfish in it? Definitely not keeping goldfish in it, and I don't believe that the ice has been thawed. I was speaking to rink manager Matt Newens last week, and pretty certain that the ice is there, so it'll be ready and available for when we're out of lockdown and we can come back and hopefully enjoy that environment once again. Same family, next question. If you could have any past player back, who would it be and why? I'm assuming this is a Tigers player, and I'm not looking at somebody that I've coached. I think for me, if we could have any player back that I played with in a Tigers shirt, I probably would say somebody like Wayne Crawford, Reggie. I was lucky enough to play nearly a full season with Reggie. Great character, great leader. Could skate all day, played hard, played mean, and I think having somebody like Reggie in your team, in your dressing room, and for the fans, he would be huge for our club. He's great character and not a bad golfer as well. So for me, it would probably be somebody like, it would definitely be Wayne Crawford, Reggie. Next question comes from Kevin McIntosh. If you could have the Tigers play against any other team in any league in the world, who would it be and why? Again, this one I had to think about a lot. There's a lot of good teams over the years. You look at a lot of Stanley Cup champions, a lot of Olympic champions, teams in the middle of Europe. I toyed with the Russian Red Army, but I think I've settled on the iconic team of the 1980s, which was Edmonton Oilers, led by obviously the very famous and talented Wayne Gretzky. I think that team was phenomenal in that period, in that era. And if you look at somebody like Gretzky alone, I think it was something, I heard this the other day, he still holds 62 of 63 playing records from his time in the game. So to play against somebody like Wayne Gretzky would be phenomenal. But that Oilers team, which was kind of all conquering in that era with Yari Curry, Paul Coffey, the likes of Grant Fuhr, Mark Messier, McSorley, Kevin Lowe, these were all top end guys, and I think for that period of time when I was a youngster, kind of coming into the sport, we didn't get a chance to watch them much. So I would love to play, or say I've been able to be on the ice with those guys. That would be fantastic. Question number 9 comes from Ant Roberts. If you could change one thing about British ice hockey going forward, what would it be? I think it's just some more stability and more recognition from outside the game. I think we're a sport, recognised in other parts of the world that has a huge amount of support, a huge amount of backing from media, from perhaps government, and I just don't feel that we get that in the UK. And our athletes, our players are as dedicated as any. And I'm not just talking in our league or the elite league. Everybody, similar work ethic. On top of that, our guys all go to work. So for me, it would be a bit more recognition for the sport, more funding at grassroots level to try and grow the sport in the right way. I think it's a phenomenal game. It catches everybody's imagination, and I think from a playing perspective, it teaches you a lot. From how to compete in as a team and just self-discipline and self-commitment and self-control. I think that there's a whole lot that people can learn from playing, not just ice hockey, but team sports. So for me, it's about trying to push new boundaries. So I think having some more exposure outside of ice hockey. Everybody that watches ice hockey loves it, so I'm sure there's a crowded of audience of people that would be able to capture if that was the case. Ant Roberts again, where do you see Telford Tigers in 5 years' time? Definitely in Telford. I don't know. It's a tough question. The sport changes so much in such a short space of time. Who knows what effect this coronavirus situation is going to have on the game? I'd like to say we're going to be in a competitive league. We're going to be continuing with a sustainable element of the business side of the club, and we're able to progress more local players into the group. That said, if local players aren't good enough, we've got to go outside and make sure that we can compete with the teams in our league. So we never pigeonhole ourselves, but I've worked with the juniors here for a long time, and we're lucky enough to have a good core of young players coming through. So I'd like to see some of those guys develop. I'd also like to see some of those players develop and move on to bigger clubs, whether it's in this country or abroad. You know, we've got some talented players. So Telford Tigers doing what we do, competing at the right end of the table, packing the place out. For me, that would be an absolute must. Next question comes from Tigers junior player Sam Kay. Who is your favourite Telford Tigers player? Difficult one to answer, Sam. I don't want to upset any of the players and call out individuals. We've got some key guys in this year's team. I've already mentioned that if I could bring one player back, it would be Wayne Crawford. I think he was a standout player from over the years. But if you look at every Tigers team, there's always had some good quality. So I think the strength of this year's team was just that. It was about the strength of the team. We had some key performers for sure. But as a group, for me, the biggest difference in this year's team was the depth of our lineup. I think that was one of the major reasons that we were able to win and compete. So not going to single anybody out from this year's team as my favourite, but difficult to look past my son Sam in that situation. A few more questions here. Who do you believe was Tigers MVP last season? Again, very difficult to choose an individual. We had some really strong performances, and not just judging guys on points, but guys that played above and beyond perhaps expectations. Certainly somebody like Nick Oliver rose to the challenge, short on body, short on defence, lose a couple of key guys, but Nick really, for me, had an outstanding season. Again, our top end scorers, they all contributed, but you can't win without good goaltending. And what's the saying? Good. How does it go? Offense wins games, defense wins championships, and Brad was the core of our defensive unit, or the core of our team, if you like. He played every minute, apart from 25 minutes of every game this season. I think to do that and to do it the way he did was outstanding. For me, Brad was not just Tigers MVP. Brad should have been the league MVP to win a cup and a league in the same season, and have better record and better head-to-heads than all the goaltenders in the league. For me, definitely Brad Day was Tigers MVP and league MVP in my opinion. Next question. Do you see yourself coaching in the Elite League one day? I really don't know. I'd like to keep going and gradually progress a little bit further. I'm really happy coaching and doing what I do in Telford. To be able to see the progression of the club over the years that I've been involved is great. To be able to see the progression of young players from first steps in at learn to play level into the senior team is great. I pretty much can remember when the likes of Finn Howells and obviously Sam started playing. There's other guys that have come through that group with Dan Mitchell, and I don't think you get that if I was to go and coach in an Elite League team. That said, I do want to progress and I want to coach against the best. I really enjoyed my time coaching at the international level with Great Britain. It's a different experience for sure, different environment, but it's great to be coaching amongst the best, and yeah, for sure I'd like to see where my coaching career can take me. Do you feel there's a pathway in the British game to bring through high level players who will get ice time in the Elite League? Simple answer, no. It's not there. I don't think there's enough opportunity in the Elite League to provide good playing minutes for the indigenous player, if you like. And I don't think it's just about creating spots for players for the sake of it. Players have got to be good enough. So it starts at the bottom end. We've got to look at what we're doing at the bottom end. We've got to have that investment to allow players, teams, clubs, coaches to spend more time on the ice with their group. For essentially 1-2 hours a week. We're never going to be able to develop the players that we need. I think it's trying to get that house in order at the bottom end. And like I said before, ice hockey in this country sadly is a minority sport, and I think at some point we've got to recognise that, but work with what we've got. And I think if we can do that, we can produce players. For me, Elite League's got too many imports, taking up too many jobs that I think should be available and have some playing opportunities for British players, and for me that's the future of the sport here. Best Tigers player you have ever coached? I think difficult to look past Jonathan Weaver. Jonathan's had an excellent career both professionally in the Elite League and with ourselves, but also internationally. I think he's close to having 100 caps for the national team. He played in the AHL as a young very young guy, but I think his overall talent level is probably just better than most. The way he understands the game, the way he moves, the way he reads situations in tight spots. He's very calm. He's got a lot of composure and shows a lot of poise on the puck, and not a lot of guys can do that. He consistently performs at a very high level. So probably somebody like Jonathan, definitely for his overall talent and what he brings to the team, is probably the best player that I've coached. That said, we've got a lot of good hockey players that I've coached over the years. Somebody like Jason Silverthorne, Scott McKenzie, guys that are in this current roster have done a phenomenal job for me as players. Somebody that's progressing very well at the moment, Danny Rose. He's been here for a long time. And they've all done a good job for this. So I don't like singling out guys, but I think if you're looking for a special player, then Jonathan's probably that. He's probably one of the best players or British players of this generation, and not just a British guy. He's up there with the best imports that have been around the league as well in his position. So for me, it's a simple one. Do you ever feel? Missed a question there. Which game from last season gave you the most pleasure? I think every time you win, you get a lot of emotion, pride from that performance. I think when you're able to consistently win, I think it's different. But certainly the game that we were able to come back from 4 goals back at the home in the semi-final of the Cup, I think it's an easy one really for the game that gave you the most pleasure. It probably meant the most. I think it certainly gave us a huge lift to be able to progress in that moment. To come from 4 behind at home with 2.5 periods to play was a phenomenal achievement. And the atmosphere in the ice rink that night was fantastic. The emotion on the bench was excellent. It was a really fun game to coach, and to be on the right side of the result was awesome. So yeah, it was a great night all around. But the whole season gave me a lot of pleasure, to be honest. I'd gone from being in the northern part of the NHL and not really enjoying the hockey to really being excited to get to the rink, to get in front of the boys, to plan a session, to plan a game, to make some in-game decisions that can actually have an effect on a game, not just because you've got the best players. So I felt this year was important for me on a personal level, from a coaching point of view, where you could make those in-game decisions and actually have an effect on the game. Plus the level, the speed, the commitment was far higher from what we've been used to over the last 2 seasons. So hopefully this will be the start of a first year of a really strong league. Last question, worst injury. I think all injuries are bad. No hockey player wants to be out of the lineup. I think they want to be playing as much as they can. I think the concussion at the moment is something that is a massive issue. I've had my fair share myself, and understand the symptoms that go with that, and they're really debilitating, but at different levels for different people. And you just look at somebody like Weeze last year, spent a lot of time out with nursing his concussion, and I think it's hard for people to understand when you can't see what that injury is. So I think that puts a lot of pressure on that person. It's not like having a broken bone where you can physically see the injury. You look at somebody, they look normal, they're fine, but for certain parts of that injury. So concussion for sure is something that I've suffered with myself. But I'd say the worst injury I've had was a puck in the mouth, which knocked out all the teeth on the bottom of my on the bottom row there. So 5 or 6 teeth kind of hit me right here in the chin, went straight through my mole. Could stick my tongue out the bottom side of this, and all these teeth are fake. Spent 8 to 10 weeks in the dentist chair, getting them put right, and the following week after I'd got them in, I then take another puck in the chin here and knocked a couple of them back out, so I had to go back into the dentist. So that was probably the most frustrating, because it's in your mouth, you feel it constantly no matter what the situation was. And I can remember it happening quite vividly still, and that experience wasn't very pleasant, and I don't think anybody really likes spending any time in the dentist. So yeah, for me that was probably my worst injury. But if you're a hockey player, you got to learn to deal with those injuries, and it's part of their game. And I think it's something that we did very well as a team last year was deal with those injuries. And tip my hat to the boys that they were able to keep competing the way they did, even though at times they were nursing some pretty heavy knocks and injuries as well. So I think that's it. I think that's the last question. Hopefully I've not missed anybody out. They're the questions that I've got on my sheet. So thanks to everybody who sent in their questions. Thanks to everybody that supported us this season. It's been a phenomenal year. We will start to look forward to the next season in due course, but much, and we'll go straight into the McKenzie Monday shirt off the back draw, followed by our jersey design competition winner. So good luck to everybody. Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
Kiss my soul, here we are, out on this road. I'll take you with me anywhere, yeah. Here's my heart, it's yours, and no, I'll take you with me, and I swear that I'm with you till I die, with you till I die. I'm with you till I die, with you till I die. My love, I got you, babe. My heart is with you always. My love, I got you, babe. My heart is with you always.